Because listeners, you are not going to believe what happened to me yesterday when I went to the supermarket and bought the wrong kind of cheese. Now I'm going to tell you that story at length next as Spencer's extended thoughts for the day enters hour 5. Now. Hi there! Yeah, do you love the sound of your own voice? And do you think you could make the perfect podcast? Well, this week, Click goes in search of something interesting to listen to and finds out how the amateurs feel about the big broadcasters taking over the charts. We'll also meet the robots happy to do all our hard work, as long as they get a game of football on the side. All that, plus the latest tech news and a way to make your dumb phone smarter in Webscape. Welcome to Click. I'm Spencer Kelly. The podcast was meant to be a way for anyone to get in front of the mic and air their thoughts with the World Wide Web. But in recent times, what was traditional bedroom radio territory seems to have been taken over by the big broadcasters. So has the podcast, like many areas of Web 2.0, gone corporate? LJ Rich donned her cans to hear from a few familiar voices.
You may not recognise James's face, but tens of thousands of listeners know his voice.
You're listening to The Pod Delusion, a podcast about interesting things.
His weekly podcast has been going for a couple of years. That's young by the internet standard, but in a short time he's gained enough traction to be one of the few independent podcasters up alongside big broadcasters. And with around 250,000 podcasts available through iTunes, that's quite the achievement.
Certainly I think our entire success is down to the format, because like we just stitch different reports together. People always know if I get bored of this, I can wind on 5 minutes. We're talking about something completely different, which helps no end. Whereas if it's just, here's 2 solid hours of us discussing something or other, who's going to listen to that? If they get bored, it'll just be close the window, not listening.
James enjoys podcasting so much, he works for a podcast upload provider and gets his bandwidth as part of his day job. But for all the fun to be had from bedroom podcasting, independents like James don't really make a living from it. On the other hand, much larger outfits have easy access to money and resources, and therefore audiences. Take the BBC, for example. For 70 years, Bush House has been sending out radio signals all over the world, but it's technically challenging and extremely expensive. Nowadays, you can just bung it on the web and anyone can listen. This is Click Radio's recording studio. Now, the next 18 minutes will be preserved as a podcast for people to listen to later.
Hello, I'm Gareth Mitchell, and today, live, we're talking about fishing. No, not with a PH.
And the big broadcasters have access to places like Studio C21M. More acoustically controlled than your average bedroom. And unlike your house, there's kit and extra people on hand to make things sound a bit more polished. So, with the heavy lifting taken care of, radio host Gareth gets to concentrate on what he's saying, which, if you do it professionally, has a few extra caveats.
I think one of the big differences between broadcast, mainstream radio and podcasting is that the podcaster probably can take more risks. I mean, for a start, they're not sitting in a big building like this with a complex but perfectly justified and important editorial chain of command. They're much freer to go off and do things. Now, one thing to say is, on a podcast, you can still be sued, so don't do anything stupid, but you can be more risky, I think, in terms of the production approach, when you're aware that you don't have, kind of an audience of maybe millions of people.
Well, because I'm ultimately in editorial control and we've got no one to answer to, we can sort of say whatever we want. We don't have to pretend to be fair and balanced, to use an unfortunate phrase. Occasionally I've had to make editorial decisions, which made me feel very important and also terrified. We often have sort of a relatively well-known person. We've had last week we had Marcus Brigstock as a guest talking about his new book, and then the dilemma was: do we put him? Let's basically decide the running order. Do we put him first, or do we put the most topical newsy thing first? And usually I go with the celebrities because I'm very crass.
Across the pond, there's an alternative business model suiting podcasters who aren't big broadcasters, but it's not easy. It's getting the listeners to pay for your hard work. And you'll need a few million people to like it for that to work out. You'd need to do more than ramble into your mic for 3 hours. And one of the more elaborate podcasts with incredibly high production values is based right here in New York. Radiolab is a popular show on American public radio about philosophy, science and big questions like what is time. Great pride is taken in a completely ridiculous edit ratio. It takes an hour to make each 20 seconds. Fiddly and financially unsustainable for a broadcast radio programme, the podcast format's given these guys the motivation and, more importantly, the money in donation form to keep it up.
That's what saved us. I mean, podcasting provided a logic to this project that I think there's a broadcasting logic now, but we're sort of defying the logic of broadcasting by making so few and making them so carefully. With a podcast, you have this intimacy. You're in people's ears. They will rewind you. They'll listen to you again. So you can play for the third or fourth listen, and you can make things layered and textured, and you can really sweat the details in a way that you.
But I think
just
really
can't.
the podcast justified what we had already been doing. We now say, well, you put us in your ears. We beautifully make it so that you can hear all this nuance.
The funding from the fans keep the guys in business, with an estimated 2 million downloads a month of the podcast. And Chad and Robert's special relationship with their listeners mean they receive more than just money.
It's an interesting business model. It suggests that going forward, if you find an audience that finds you, and you can sort of hold hands together, you then can start playing around with what kinds of things those loyal audience members will do for you or with you. With you is a whole new area. We're getting videos and ballets and strange things from the audience, designs, tote bag designs and things. So they said, us too, they seem to say.
Big broadcasters getting in on the podcast might not be such a bad thing. After all, without them, how many of us would know what a podcast is?
They're going to see the big names first, and in a sense, that's crowded us out. But in another sense, having the corporate podcasters there, having the BBC, having Absolute Radio, another really big one in the UK, on the podcast charts, I think could be bringing people in, because if these major national broadcasters are saying, like at the end of every BBC radio programme, it's always like, or you can download the podcast from our website. That's telling people what podcasts are, that's teaching them about the medium, that's encouraging them to go on there in the first place, which hopefully then will lead to the discovery of our podcast.
When one thinks about podcasting, it's easy to think about David and Goliath, so you've got the big, well-established, well-resourced broadcasters versus the little guy in a bedroom putting a podcast together. But we have to remember that we all have access to the same audience, and we all have access to the social media. And what I think we're seeing now, especially with podcasting, is that tendency to create an audience, to build an audience through you leveraging the social media, as it were.
OK, big broadcasters might have an established route to their listeners' ears. But all podcasters can advise people of their imminent episodes through the artful use of social media. And that's one place where everyone's still learning.
LJ Rich lending us her ears. And don't forget, you can hear Gareth Mitchell and the Click Radio podcast at our website, bbc.co.uk/click, the address you need. And we'd also really be interested to hear what you think makes a good podcast. And is it actually any different to what makes a good radio programme? Email click@bbc.co.uk or tweet us at bbcclick. Next up, this week's tech news.
In the midst of News Corp's phone hacking scandal in the UK, hacktivists LOL Security have come out of retirement to plunder 2 of Murdoch's newspapers. The Sun's website redirected readers to a hoax story claiming Rupert Murdoch was found dead in his garden. And the Collective has now tweeted to say it's poring over some of the information it's gleaned. Apple's new operating system Lion has launched on download only. The new OS promises more multi-touch gestures, full-screen apps and better security. Also this week, an American trade court has ruled that HTC has infringed 2 of Apple's patents. The smartphone maker, who already pay around $5 per handset in licensing fees to Microsoft, might have to keep Apple's suite as well, if the preliminary ruling is upheld. And finally, British table tennis champion Andrew Baggaley has lent his body to science. Well, Microsoft. Their gaming experts persuaded him to climb into a special bodysuit and spend hours filming in a motion capture suite. The team converted the movements for use with their Kinect controller. Does that make him virtually unbeatable?
Geeks and football don't generally mix, unless it's on video games consoles or giant robot sports tournaments. And what do you know? We've got the giant robot sports tournament. From Turkey, Andrew Webb reports on RoboCup 2011.
Welcome to RoboCup 2011.
RoboCup 2011 is the competition of over 1,500 robots, of which many of them play soccer against each other.
Football, the beautiful game, and apparently the perfect test of a robot's performance. The aim of RoboCup is to let robot teams from around the world loose on the pitch. They decide for themselves how to tackle, gain possession, and win a match.
All the robots are autonomous robots, which means that they play with their own intelligence. You program the robot, you put in your software, and then you let them go, and they are on their own.
Here's the theory. If a machine can make sense of football's unpredictable nature, it must be showing signs of artificial intelligence. So how do they do it? The Now robot is sold as a toy, but contains technology to rival many custom-designed RoboCup entrants.
The Now robot is a completely autonomous system, so it has a computer, it has cameras, it has other sensors. It perceives the field through the camera, and we detect goalposts, the field lines, other players, the ball, etc. And it builds up a model where things are on the field, and then it has to act.
The UK's only entry was a team of Nows trained at Edinburgh University. One big challenge for researchers is to make the bot keep its eye on the ball.
So we have this robot coming after this ball. So he's using his vision to figure out where it is, and he's walking towards it. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky and move it about. So you can see that he's actually reacting to his world.
Despite such powers of concentration, the Scots were knocked out in qualifiers, and the Germans won. Sounds familiar. But as any manager knows, winning is all about team tactics, and robots have a particularly efficient way of communicating.
There's a team play aspect. There's a Wi-Fi network, and so they talk to this wireless, and they say, hey, I'm nearest the ball. I'm going to go for it. You play some defense.
RoboCup's not just about creating mechanoid sporting superstars, it's also aimed at getting robots into the home. And engineers have been battling it out to find out who's got the best electronic domestic servant. Thank you.
You are welcome, old chap.
This is the RoboCup at Home event. Robotic groups are coming together in order to perform against each other, so which robot is performing best in natural environments like domestic homes.
So this is where it really gets tricky. The challenge here is to make a machine act like a human at home, but stilted conversation really exposes the gap between man and machine.
Hi, my name is Kozro.
Bring a snack.
I need more specific information on the location.
The fridge.
What kind of snack do you mean?
He had to ask which of the snacks he knows and which of the kitchen appliance he knows he specifically had to go to get the Pringles, for example, on the fridge.
You specified the Pringles. I go now to fridge.
To make this work, the robot must be programmed to recognize all possible objects and locations, and it must know if what it thinks it hears makes sense.
I found Pringles.
Then you have to get the mechanics right.
Here you are. It was a pleasure. See you.
Hello. I'm here to clean. What should I do?
Try and clean the table.
I will go clean the living room table.
So at the moment,
It's having a look to try and detect the surface of the table.
There are items on the table that I can reach. I will remove them before I clean it.
It's going through the process of working out where it is in physical space and how it can get from where it is to where it needs to be. And although that's quite simple for us as humans, it's actually quite complicated for robots.
You may think this looks a world away from robots portrayed in movies, but engineers say we're on the cusp of something really big happening.
If you've seen one robot do one cool thing and you've seen another robot do an even better thing, what happens when we bring them all together? Then we can have this phenomenal robot and we can start to rival what we see in Hollywood.
10 years from now, you will have so many robots around your domestic environment so that you won't be able to count the exact number of robots. They will become an essential part of our domestic lives.
Those kind of claims have a familiar ring to them. But from what I've seen at this year's RoboCup, mechanised domestic help can't be that far away.
I cannot understand your command. I am very sad. I am going to the outside.
Android Web there. We do call him that because he seems to have the ability to work day and night without the need for food or sleep. Anyway, we cover a lot of smartphone apps on Click, but we are aware that many of you around the world don't own smartphones. But why shouldn't you have the same benefits as your contemporaries with the high-powered handsets? Well, Kate Russell thinks you should. Here's Webscape.
OK, so you haven't got the latest smartphone, but you can still experience smart mobile content as long as you have Snap 2 installed.
Snap your finger.
This isn't a smartphone emulator. It's an app that uses Java. Just head along to the mobile site and follow the prompts to download it for your Java-enabled handset. Then it'll load up with a homepage filled with relevant local content. This page is easy to customise, removing unwanted widgets and adding new ones from the Snap Store. The real beauty with this app is that it makes the most popular online resources usable on much older handsets. The apps are simplified with one-button click navigation, catering to the lowest common denominator. The upshot? They are quick, easy to use and won't chew their way through too much data, which sounds like a win to me. And even if you do have a smartphone but want access to popular web services without all the fuss and bloated data traffic, you can still get a lot out of this free app. Music can have a profound effect on people from every walk of life, and never more so than at playingforchange.com. This inspirational website houses a collection of great music videos with a message of peace and unity across the earth at their core. The video producers built a mobile recording studio so they could capture contributions wherever the music took them, which sounds like a brilliant job, and the results are really moving. I definitely recommend spending some quiet time with this website with your headphones on. Use the embed code to share your finds on your website or blog and spread a little winds of change, love. You know what it's like. You get halfway to the park with your picnic and suddenly the heavens open, drenching you and your cheese and pickle sandwiches. You obviously weren't using rainalarm.com.
Is it raining at your house?
This browser-based service will warn you if there's any bad weather heading your way, like rain or snow, giving you the chance to grab your galoshes and a brolly before heading out into the big, bad and often soggy world.
Is it cloudy all the time?
You can also run it through a Firefox or Chrome extension, and there's even a Windows sidebar widget, plus mobile versions for Android and iPhone. The data comes from government weather services and is updated every 30 minutes. You'll need to check under the Help button to see if your country is covered. But if it is, you should never get caught in a sudden downpour at the end of the street again. There have been a lot of stories in the news recently that have got people talking, like the Commons Select Committee hearing on the News of the World phone hacking scandal last week and that pie-in-the-face drama that unfolded. So what did you think? If you have a passion for discussion about current affairs, Tribal Fish is a brand new real-time discussion network that replaces blogs and forums, making it easier to find the topics that have got everyone talking. Or start your own and invite others to voice their opinions.
If at some point we all succumb.
And finally, we have another chance to be part of a music video. It seems like all the coolest bands are doing it these days. The Vaccines want to use your Instagram pics from festivals, gigs and parties this summer for the music video for their track Wetsuit. To take part, all you have to do is tag your upload or email it to them directly.
We all got old at breakneck speed.
Check out vaccinesvideo.com for more information and to browse the wall of all those photographs already submitted.
Kate Russell. And Kate's links are available at our website. If you missed them, bbc.co.uk/click the address you need. You'll also find a video stream of all our reports there and a link to the Click Radio show, which we heard from and saw earlier. And this week, it's a special programme recorded in front of a live audience, discussing who will eventually control the entire internet. Big business, governments, or possibly us. That's it for Click on TV. Get in touch. Email click@bbc.co.uk or tweet us at BBC Click if you fancy. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.